Hey Alex.
Yeah?
Did you notice something?
I did not.
We are underwater. Wow, I'd hate to be those morons out there, man. Good thing we can breathe inside this nice submarine that we're in.
That is very deep in the ocean.
Very deep. I think a fish got in here. Well, no, I guess that's just actually the deep ones.
Laugh!
Where's the baby?
A movie released in 2020. It was directed by ya boy, Chad Ferrin, who is known for directing a bunch of garbage. Now this movie though, this is different because this isn't just any other garbage. This is an adaptation from H.P. Lovecraft himself.
My whole life I've been inspired by Lovecraft's work. I think he's just a genius.
I'm a pretty big H.P. Lovecraft fan. I've been trying to get Alex into it. We did a Dagon game.
Oh! What the bro?
The story it's adapted from primarily is The Shadow over Innsmouth. There's also one last thing I do want to point out. Like 90% of this movie was just shot at Gina La Piana's beach house. Gina La Piana being the lead role in this movie. She facilitated the making of this movie pretty much.
Yeah, she really took the brunt of the load.
Yeah.
So let's get into this.
Let's get into this. The deep ones. Blah, 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 blah. So The Deep Ones is a movie about not just any fish and just a general lack of consent. In the very beginning, we just see a random naked woman running around. But let's start with the basics of the plot. So there's these two people, Alex, who is the lead, you know, Gina La Piana, whose house we're in. And then we have Petri, and he's from Finland, and he looks like a fireman. They are married. They are going to take this vacation to this beach house that is being loaned to them by this mysterious older couple that knows them from something. It's never really explained. The old man is named Russell. He kind of looks like Hugh Hefner. He gives me big Hugh Hefner vibes. He's kind of playboying it out. The robe, the hairy old man chest, and the gold necklace hanging out, you know? And immediately you can pick up something's off.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, who's that?
They're like, yeah, whatever. Here are the keys. They're kind of talking.
You've been to Finland?
In my youth, it was on Satama, beautiful women. Beautiful women.
Russell's wife, who's at least 20 years younger than he is pregnant, you know, and so they're talking about pregnancy, and then it comes up that Alex and Petri had a miscarriage recently, which was kind of like why they went on this vacation. Even though they don't really act like a couple who just suffered a miscarriage, they kind of just act like a couple, and it comes up here and there.
Yeah.
We recently had a miscarriage.
But that is a thing. It's not really emphasized, but like it just goes with the theme of like conceiving babies and also the fish. So Petrie's really liking them, but like the girl's kind of like, whatever, you know. And then they leave, and then immediately Alex and Petrie start having a vigorous sex.
Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my goodness.
He is going deep. Gina La Piana is showing her boobs all over this beach house, like full boobage. Then it shows them being watched on cameras, and they're being watched by one old man, and he's kind of like, yeah. Basically, it's to establish that they have like hidden cameras all over the house. She goes to bed after they have vigorous sex, and she has these weird dreams where she's like pregnant, and Petrie and the old couple and like all these other people are just standing around, and she's like, what happened to my baby? And they're like, he's dead. And they all start laughing. You know, because miscarriage is like nature's funniest punchline. She wakes up and she's like, oh, that was weird. But she's like sick, so she vomits. So it's kind of like assumed like, oh, what is she, like pregnant already? And then she gets up and the lady, Russell's wife, is there and she's cooking and Petrie's like shoveling clam eggs into his mouth. Alex is walking around, her boobs are hanging out, and then some guy who's clamming like sees her with her boobs. He's just staring at her. She's like, oh, that's weird.
And it's still just hanging out there.
Beautiful women.
Then he comes in and he's like, oh, we got clams. She's looking at everything and she's getting really sick because she's got morning sickness. So she goes and she vomits.
Beautiful women.
And then they're like, oh, hey, Petrie, why don't you come out onto our boat? But Alex is like, oh, I'm sick. I'll stay here. Petrie, why don't you go onto their boat and hang out with them while I stay here, get some sleep, and try to sleep off this sickness. And he's like, okay, I love boats. So he goes onto this boat and it's Russell and Russell's very pregnant wife who's wearing very little pants. Russell, of course, he's, Hugh Hefnered out and everything. They're chit-chatting. The wife lays down and kind of displays her groin. Russell Hefner is like, hey, you want to smoke this OG Kush?
Oh, real OG Kush, as they say.
So they start smoking the weed, and then as he's like smoking the weed, Russell like reflects light off of his lighter into his eyes, like follow the light, and he hypnotizes Petrie. And then he says, oh, look at the light, Petrie. Do you see the light? He's like, yes, I see the light. And then Petrie looks at the light coming from Russell's wife's vagina.
Petrie, you see the light?
And it's emanating light, and this is where the movie starts getting weird. This is where the movie starts getting bizarre. Out from this glowing vagina comes a big tentacle. And the tentacle proceeds to give Petrie one of the most ooey, gooey deep throats you have ever seen in your life. That man must have downed 20 inches of vagina tentacle. And it's kind of like in his mouth, and he's like, they're like, oh, what do you see? What do you see? And so he sees this vision, and they're like, oh, Dagon spoke to you. And that's when you're like, oh, Dagon, Cthulhu, Dagon, hey, Dagon, remember, guys, this is a Lovecraft thing. So then he's still kind of hypnotized. He's like spewing out like tentacle fluids. And then Russell goes, oh, after I click this lighter, you're gonna be back to consciousness. And he clicks it, and he comes back to consciousness, and he starts coughing and really bad. He's like, oh, my throat burns. But Russell's like, oh, it's just the
real OG Kush.
You just smoked.
The deep one breathes.
So while Petrie is on the boat, Alex gets visited by the doctor, who is a man.
I am Dr. Gene Raymer.
The man doctor like examines her and is like, oh, I need you to pee in this cup.
The doctor lady, she goes into the other room while she's peeing in the cup, and she starts like making this noise and staring into the middle distance. She goes, so the doctor's leaving, and then pretty spazzy lady comes up. She's like, oh, have you seen my daughter? I haven't seen my daughter. And then she's like, oh, they're gonna take you. The doctor's one of them. And then this sheriff with the cowboy hat comes around the corner, and he goes, oh, he's one of them too. And then she kind of scurries off. And then the sheriff comes up, and he's like, what's up? I'm a big Texas sheriff here in California. That's just the local crazy lady. Don't pay her no mind. Her daughter just disappeared, and then they foreclosed her house. So she's a little stressed.
Just kind of send her over the edge.
Anyway, there's no crime around here, and I don't carry a gun. Good day to you, ma'am. And he kind of goes on his way. And then Petrie gets home. Alex has her friend over who has not been introduced to us or anything, and she gives Petrie a kiss.
The friend, I can't remember the friend's name. The friend is like, oh, these people are weird, and Petrie's like, never talk bad to them ever.
What's so weird about it?
She's like, all right then, and he's like, I'm gonna go shower, and then we're all going to the party because there's a party being held down at the doctor's house. Before they go to the party, there's a scene where the crazy woman is running around like a parking lot, and she like hears like the squishy chasing her, and she's like, ah! So she's running around, and the squishiness is chasing her. It's like, she gets in her car, and she like looks in the rearview mirror, and Russell is sitting in the back, and he's like, your daughter was used in order to create the new great one. She opens the door, and the monster comes in and grabs her and eats her up. She gets killed, and that's it, by her daughter. Oh, he also quotes Lovecraft.
That is not dead, which can eternal lie, and with strange eons, even death may die.
So they go to the party, and Alex and the friend and Petrie come up. Russell meets them. He's like, oh, welcome to the community. And everybody's like staring at them, and they're all wearing nice clothes. And the guy's like, Petrie, come meet everybody. And Petrie goes around and meets everybody, and everybody's like staring at him all weird.
For a life check, I guarantee.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and they're saying weird languages, and all the kids are wearing masks too, which will come into play later. So while he's like meeting everybody,
He gets introduced to someone very important, and that man is Bob Finley. See?
all the women are like want to fuck him.
Hi, I'm Bob Finley. Petrie?
And Bob Finley
Is Bob Finley.
Yes.
Hi. Beautiful house.
Bob Finley!
Absolutely.
The two women are like, we want tequila right now. And they were taking shots of a lot of tequila. Russell comes up to the friend and is like, hey, how are you? And she's like, I've gotten divorced. So after like Petrie meets everybody, Russell grabs Petrie's like, Petrie, it's Cuban time.
Cuban time. Cuban time.
And they go outside, and there's a woman dancing, and there's like fire rings going around everywhere, and all the dudes are smoking Cubans.
Oh, excuse me. It's Cuban time.
Alex and her friend are like slamming back tequila shots, and they go up to Petrie. They're like, Petrie, let's go back to the house and let's get out of here. And Petrie's like, no, I want to sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat and finish with all my new friends. And Russell's like, oh, he's staying with us for Cuban time. It's Cuban time.
It's Cuban time.
So the women are like, all right, like just stay here. We're gonna go back. So they walk back, and they get to the top of the stairs to their house, and there's like a little girl standing there. The girl is like, you look like my mom. And Alex is like, I'm definitely not your mom. The little girl reaches her hand out, and it's all webbed like a Dagon creature.
She's got Dagon hands.
She got Dagon hands. The friend's like, oh, look at your webbed hands. The girl's like, don't touch me.
Don't touch me.
I'm Dagon, and runs off into the darkness. So then they go in the house, and they're like, let's take more tequila shots, and they're just pouring more tequila. So then the friend pulls a book off of the shelf, and it's like, oh, look at H.P. Lovecraft.
They're really into Lovecraft.
And she opens it up, and there's like a letter inside and a bunch of pictures, and they're like, oh, look at these old pictures, and it's a letter from Ingrid. And then the friends all like, oh, they're a cult, oh, they're Jim Jones, oh, Necronomicon.
It's all this Necronomicon stuff. But maybe Russell and that colony is into like weird shit like that.
This has got to be a joke.
So they like read her story, and then the friend's like, I'm clearly extremely intoxicated on tequila, but I'm gonna try to drive home tonight. Alex is like, oh, you get home safe. So her friend gets in the car, and she's like driving home, and like you can see Russell running behind her with a paddle. As the friend is driving, the little girl from before is in the middle of the road. So the friend gets out and is like, what are you doing? And Russell comes up and just slams her. And she's like, Russell, what are you doing? And he's like, you know, there's a lot of hit and runs on this road, and gets in the car. He runs over the friend and like drags her along. And the friend's like, ah, and gets killed. I don't think that's how that works. And that's the end of that scene. They don't really conclude that.
Meanwhile, Alex cannot find her phone. She is looking all up and down for her phone, and she's like turning the house upside down, and when she's doing it, she knocks the teddy bear over, and upon closer inspection, notices a camera in the eye. She takes a painting off the wall, there's a camera behind the painting, and she pulls a curtain back, and there's a camera behind the curtain. So she's kind of like, oh my god, there's cameras everywhere. She's like, hears somebody come in the house, and she goes down, and it's like Petrie just kind of at the door looking in the house. He's acting all like conked out because he's been like super hypnotized and everything.
The fuck is wrong with you? Look at me. Give me
Real
your
OG
phone.
Kush,
Look
as
at
they
me.
say.
She lets him in the house, and he's walking, and he's like, the light's over here. And he walks into the kitchen where Russell and Russell's wife already are. They're all like, oh, this is good. You're perfect. Dagon has chosen you for a Dagon baby. And the wife's like, oh, you'll be just like me. And you kind of have the revelation that she has a Dagon baby. So she's like, oh, no, no, no. And the whole time she's got this knife in her hand that she's found somewhere. And so she's kind of holding it at Russell and Russell's wife. He's like, oh, do it. And she stabs Russell right in the chest. No. And then Russell dies, and as he's dying, he goes, oh, thank you. Thank you. So then upon Russell's death, Russell's pregnant wife goes like turbo mode, and like a bunch of tentacles explode out of her pussy. And the tentacles go after Petrie and start like dragging Petrie into her crotch. So Alex is like, fuck that. And she just leaves Petrie there to deal with tentacle crotch and just bails out of the house.
Like a bitch.
Yeah.
Did she just leave him? She's a bitch.
So she's running along the beach. Petrie catches up with her and she's like, oh, Petrie, we gotta go. And he's like, oh, no, don't worry. We'll go over here. And he takes her to like a big cult setup, a big cult party.
There he is. The children that are there all have like fish-like features. That's why they were wearing masks at the party, because they were covering their fish-like features.
They all just kind of grab her and holding her down, and she's kicking and screaming. And what happens next is they summon a man in a big rubber fish suit with glowing eyes who comes out of the ocean and rips Alex. Oh no, Dagon!
Oh no, that Dagon.
They're all chanting, and the fish it's just doing the dirty deed. And it's Dagon. The fish is Dagon. But it's really a man in a rubber suit. And it's really simultaneously hilarious as it is really uncomfortable and awkward. And then it cuts to the moon. Then it fades to another couple who get out of their car, and who answers the door but Petrie, and he shaved his mustache and he's wearing a captain's hat. And he's in the same house as before, only now he's acting like the owner.
Alex is pregnant when she opens the door, that implying that the Dagon juices got to her egg. She is now the new holder of the child of Dagon Jr.
And he invites the new couple in, and he's like, oh, have you ever been on a boat before? And the cycle begins anew.
Now we're gonna get credits.
So what essentially is happening is this cult worships this deity called Dagon. Dagon is like you know how like the devil has like a sub level of demons like Beelzebub and all that shit.
Yeah.
So there's like a Cthulhu version of that where Cthulhu is like the Satan, and then he has like a whole bunch of like arch demons that do ruling, and Dagon is one of them. And so they worship this specific deity, Dagon. And essentially what they were doing is they were trying to lure people in and hypnotize them so that they would reproduce with Dagon so that they can start like a breed of fish people so that they can take over the world. So they're luring people in, and then Dagon's coming out of the ocean and he's just raping women in a big rubber suit. I guess you can say he went deep.
Everything has just such an impact. You'll remember it in the shower.
3, 2, 1.
B.
Okay.
Yep.
It had enough to drop my jaw, but not enough to turn my head 360 degrees.
Its peaks were high, but its valleys were low. Downtime with the dialogue we were not big fans of, but goddamn, the scenes with the big fish man, scenes with tentacles, Bob Finley.
Bob Finley.
Bob Finley.
And you know what Bob Finley starts with? Birth control.
That's a weird looking fish.
It's a Dagon looking fish.
Yeah, look at that. You want to touch it? Dagon. 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 Pet him. Dagon.